Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and to Vlognukah. So this episode is also going to be very much tied into my Jewish identity because I'm going to be talking about how I am now officially a German citizen. I am now a dual citizen of the world. Well, of Britain and Germany. It feels kind of weird, exciting, complicated, so let's dive into all of that. First off, I guess we have to do the backstory of my family history. How on earth can I be a German citizen? What is going on up in my family tree? So my great-grandparents were from Germany and were German and Jewish. I actually made a whole documentary about my great-grandma, which is on this channel. I never met my great-granddad. His name was Henry or Heinz, but everyone just called him Boo. And my great-grandma, I knew her very well. She died only just a few years ago when she was 104 years old, and her name was Helen, or in German, or like her Jewish German nickname was Leni, but we just all called her Grandma. So I don't actually know all that much about my great-granddad Boo and where he was from and his family. I believe he came to England sometime in the 1930s, but the documentary that I made about my grandma and our family has a bit more of the information about her. She came over to the UK as like a nanny when she was 17, 18 years old, and this was just before the Nazis rose to power, and then basically stayed because she was not going back. Her parents both died in 1936, and her brother and sister also managed to get out. Her brother going to America, so I've got a bunch of like family over there, and her sister also came to England. So in the grand scheme of things, in terms of like German Jewish people and the Holocaust, they definitely got very, very lucky. So my great-grandparents were both German and Jewish, but they met each other in the UK, in Leeds. Me and my family actually went to go visit my great-grandma's hometown, which was in East Germany, when I was about 14 years old, and we got to see like the house where she lived, and her dad had a business, and there was like a little plaque on the like cobbled street outside which had all of their names on it. And then we also went to like the local Jewish graveyard, and we got to see her parents' graves and also like lots of other ancestors and our relatives' graves there as well. The kind of harrowing thing though about that Jewish graveyard was that it was in chronological order, and so the oldest graves right at the back and then the newest graves at the front, and my great-great-grandparents, who died in 1936, were the last graves there. There were like no more graves after that because there were no more Jewish people who died in that town and got to have a grave in that graveyard. Which, just like seeing that visually, I remember at like 14 just being like, okay, wow, yeah, that's telling a really awful story. So that's my great-grandma and her family and where she was from. And so then her eldest daughter is my grandma, and then her eldest daughter is my mum. And my grandma was born in 1943, I want to say. My great-grandparents never spoke German to her because imagine like publicly speaking German in England in the 1940s. So unfortunately, she never grew up bilingual, but she is now like very good at German because she's learnt it as an adult. But what that has meant is that the language of German has not been passed down in that way in my family. You may recall from some previous videos of mine that I was trying to learn German, and that was very much inspired by getting our applications for citizenship approved. But then I got pregnant and everything just stopped happening, and I did not have the mental or physical energy to be learning another language. But it is definitely something that I do want to pick up again. But let's talk about the application, which if you're watching this hoping that you're going to get some like tips and tricks and like how to apply for citizenship to Germany, you're not going to find any of that information in this video because essentially my gran did it all. Apparently it was a very complicated, time-consuming and grueling process. So what my gran had to do, who I'm now just going to call Nudie because that's what I call her, her name is Judy, but she goes by Nudie to her grandchildren. So essentially she had to prove that Grandma and Boo were her parents and that they were German and that they had to leave for whatever reason, right? So she had to dig up all of the paperwork like birth certificates, marriage certificates, I don't even know what, but just like reams and reams of paperwork to prove that German citizenship is something that she is entitled to. Once Nudie had done that, and I actually remember meeting her after she went to pick up her German passport in London. She was very excited. She had her little pin that I have here as well. So after she had successfully done that, then all my mum and me and my sister had to do is prove that we were related to her, because she'd done all of the hard work of connecting us to Grandma and Boo in Germany. So then me, my mum and my sister applied. I can't remember exactly when we applied, but the Brexit result in 2016 was what inspired this decision for us to get our German citizenship and passports. And so then Nudie would have done hers right after that, and then we would have done ours a bit after that. So maybe, let's say like 2018 or something, we were applying, because it took a long time. But then we found out that we were approved. We all got our emails being like, congratulations, you have been approved. You just need to like come and get your certificate, and then you will be a naturalized German and all of that. We got that email in the summer of 2019 when we were actually all in Berlin together. So it felt very poetic. Me, my parents, my sister, and my partner Dan, and my sister's partner were all there in Berlin when we all just like, ding, got our emails like, hey, guess what? You're German. We were like, ah, excellent. And then it's just been a big old wait. So essentially we just had to wait until we were able to pick up our naturalization certificates. So we found out that we could summer 2019, and then a pandemic happened. And so everything just got halted, like just huge queues and waiting times for things like passports. It wasn't until this year, 2022, very recently in September, that I actually officially became German. 3+ years in the making. So this is the most exciting bit, because going to get our naturalization certificates was not what we expected at all. It was just me and my mum. My sister is still yet to get hers, so she's got all of this wonderfulness ahead of her. But we show up expecting it to be this really informal and just bureaucratic thing of like, you just go to a kiosk, like you sign a thing, stamp, 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 here's your certificate, you're German, well done, whatever. No, 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 no. That was not the case at all. It was essentially like a mini ceremony. So the woman who had been emailing back and forth with my mum about organising a time to get our certificates took us into this like mini conference room, got us some drinks and some biscuits and cake, and then like presented us with our certificates and did this whole like, Hannah Witton, Debbie Witton, I am pleased to say that you are now officially German citizens. And it was unexpectedly really emotional. Me and my mum just thought we were like cheating the Brexit system. We were like, look at us with our EU passports, like so excited. And then we were just like hit with kind of just actually what it really meant to us to be getting our German citizenship and just the wider, larger meaning of that. And so we signed our certificates, and then she also then gave this really beautiful kind of speech just about how we should never have not been German in the first place. Like we should have always been German, and that they were really grateful for our application. And I really remember that, the fact that she used the word grateful, which I thought was really interesting, because to me that says that they are just so grateful that, you know, people like us, Jewish people, are willing to put our like faith and trust back in Germany again and be, you know, willing to be like, yes, I want to be German again. And, you know, they fucked up real bad and have done a lot in terms of reparations and accountability since then. Like it's a very different country now. But the fact that she just used the word grateful, I don't know, it just really meant a lot to me. To me, it felt like she understood what that relationship was between us and Germany. I just thought it was really interesting, and also just like the whole thing was very moving. And she also said in her speech that like what happened to our family, and of course other Jewish families, should absolutely never have happened. And yeah, me and my mum were just very much taken aback, not expecting to be having this experience at all, like really trying to hold back tears. And it was just really, really beautiful. And then we got our little like dual citizenship pins with the United Kingdom flag and the German flag, which I was very excited to receive. Like to me, seeing those two flags next to each other was very exciting, because to me I was like, oh yeah, dual citizenship, like isn't this it's really lovely. And then my mum sees those flags and it kind of like evoked this like anxiety, like, oh my God, war response, which I thought was really interesting considering like our generational difference. I'd be curious to know like what other people's like emotive responses to seeing like certain flags next to each other. I was going to say like it reminds me of football, but no, because that's like the England flag, not the United Kingdom one. The Union flag, the Union Jack, I know one of them is at sea and one of them is on land, but I can never remember which way around it is. So that's the story, but I also asked some of my patrons if they had any questions about the experience, about what it means, and they had some really thoughtful questions, and so I'm going to answer them now. How do you feel about gaining citizenship of the country that caused your family to leave in the first place? Yes, I feel like this is a very common question and also a reason why a lot of Jewish people maybe aren't interested in getting German citizenship, and that is absolutely fair. And I think it also is part of why this woman at the embassy said that they were grateful for our application, because they're absolutely not owed it, if that makes any sense. But for me, I very much see Germany now as completely different to Germany then. At least from my knowledge and what I've seen, it is a country that has really taken seriously what happened and the atrocities that were committed and done its absolute best at recognizing them, apologizing for them, and making reparations, unlike another country I know. And even though my family did have to leave, it does make me feel more connected to my great-grandma having German citizenship. I don't know what she would have thought about her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren getting German citizenship again. We don't know how she would have felt about that. But obviously we're living in a post-Brexit world here, and so there is an element of like practicality about it as well. Speaking of which, this question is, what encouraged you to take the leap and get it? Brexit. Easy answer, probably wouldn't have even considered getting my German citizenship if it wasn't for Brexit, but this now means that I have an EU passport. So on a practical sense, one, I get to go down the quick queue at customs. And then also, it just opens up so many more opportunities and doors and creates a lot more flexibility and less restrictiveness in my life depending on, you know, like if I want to live or work in a different European country. And then on an emotional level, it makes me feel European. Like I don't like Brexit on a practical and emotional level, and so it kind of helps with both of those. On an individual level, obviously not systemic at all. I mean, a lot of people post-Brexit were getting their like Irish passports or like whatever EU passport that they could get their hands on, and fair enough. It's not going to solve the problems of Brexit, but it's going to make all those people's lives just a little bit easier probably. How does having your citizenship make you feel more connected to your German/Jewishness? It does. It's hard to say why, because it's just like a made up official thing. Like I was always German and always Jewish, but now I have like a piece of paper to prove it and to show that the German government also recognized my Germanness, which I guess is kind of symbolic in a way, because what happened was the German government were like, no, you're not Germans to Jewish people. And so, yeah, it does kind of like have that connection there again of like, no, you are German, like, yes. And I think for me, in terms of the connection to Jewishness, I think it's all kind of like very overlappy and tied in together. But I know just for a fact that in my family, the Jewishness is just getting watered down like generation to generation, like quite literally in terms of how like being Jewish is passed on, which is through the mother, and just the fact that like I've married a non-Jew, my mum married a non-Jew, but then also just like the knowledge and the understanding, like I don't speak or read Hebrew as well as my mum did, and she doesn't do it as well as her mum did. And so, and the understanding of different traditions and festivals and everything, it's just being watered down generation to generation and difficult unless, you know, you really want to commit yourself to like going full Jew, you know? And so this is like a little practical thing that like ties me closer, I feel, to my Jewish identity and ties my child and other future children closer to it, which, yeah, I don't know, I hope would like maintain it for longer, hopefully. I don't know. How and why did you qualify for it in the first place? Good question. So my understanding was that I qualified for it through my great-grandparents and also through like a repatriation scheme, which I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right. You know what I'm trying to say. And what my mum told me was that it goes to great-grandchildren. Like, that's the furthest it'll go. So me and my sister, our generation is the last to qualify for it in terms of because our great-grandparents were German. However, when we went to go and get our certificates, I was with Rowan, little baby Rowan in tow, and I kind of made a joke to her about like, oh, how do we get him a German passport? Because, you know, that would just be so much more beneficial to him to be able to have an EU passport. And she was just like, oh, he can get one because you have one, like he's German, and handed me the form to fill out for like under 16s to get their German citizenship. And I was like, what? So wasn't expecting that, very excited, still need to fill out that form. So I don't quite understand, I don't know the exact rules. Every country obviously has its own rules about how you are eligible for citizenship. So there we go. I have a form. Apparently I can get Rowan's citizenship as well. Dan, however, my husband, because we're married, he doesn't automatically get it, no. But if we lived there, normally if you're a resident, you have to be a resident for 5 years before you can apply for citizenship. But because we're married, he would only have to wait 3. So I only have to live in Germany for 3 years for us all to be German. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? Do you want to visit Germany? And if so, any specific places you want to see? So I've been to a few different places. I've been to Berlin a bunch of times. I've been to Hamburg, and I've been to the part of East Germany that my great-grandma is from. I would love to visit Munich. Never been to there. And who knows, maybe some other places. Let me know your recommendations. But I really do love Germany. I do especially love Berlin. Do you see yourself living here for some time or maybe even longer to experience the culture? And do you want to learn the language? Does someone in your immediate family talk German or grew up here? No one in my immediate family grew up in Germany. That is my great-grandparents. My grandma, Nudi, does speak German, I think, but she learnt that in adulthood. I would love to learn the language. I need to re-download Duolingo and Babbel and like get started on that whenever I find the goddamn time. I'm answering these questions like in reverse order. And then do I see myself living there for some time? Maybe. I've always said to Dan that the only places I can see myself living in the UK are London or Manchester. But then outside of that, Berlin is a place that I could see myself living, or like Germany in general. The only thing that makes me hesitant about wanting to like live in Germany or spend a longer time there is that it is very much a cash economy. Like every time I've been to Berlin, you just can't use your card places, and I am not used to that. Like you have to get cash out. If there are any like more card friendly cities in Germany, like let me know, I want to go there. But ultimately it kind of depends on Dan's work. Like I can kind of do my job from wherever, but not really. Like it would take some planning, but Dan's work is very much in London right now, so you never know what the future holds, who knows. What does being an EU citizen mean to you in a broader sense? I feel like I kind of already talked about this, but in general, it's about being and feeling European, being part of something bigger, a sense of belonging to this wider community that's full of all different ethnicities and nationalities and cultures and languages, not isolating yourself on your little island and feeling like you're better than everybody else, like not doing that, very much like integrating into a big community and feeling a part of that. That's what it means to me. How do you think becoming a dual citizen at a later stage in life will influence your self-identity? So this is an interesting question because I kind of feel like it is just a piece of paper, and is there anything really tangible or real that makes me feel German, that makes me feel like I'm a dual citizen? It was my great-grandparents who were German, and yes, I did know my great-grandma, so there is that connection there, but I only ever knew her in England and speaking English, even though she did have a heavy German accent. So it is an odd one. It's one of those things that doesn't feel like it's true unless I just say it, like, I am a dual citizen, I am German and British. In the context of Brexit, I feel very lucky to be a German citizen. In the context of being Jewish, it makes me feel more connected to my family and then also to being Jewish by being German. But in reality, other than by on paper and by family, there isn't really anything much German about me. Like I don't speak the language, I'm not familiar with the culture, like not in the same way that I identify with being British and that I'm proud of being British in that sense. But hey, you know, there's a whole other like language and culture to learn about. You know, in the same way that there are parts of being British that I identify with and parts that I'm like, no, stay very far away from me, maybe it'll be similar with Germanness as well. I think the first time it might feel a bit real is like traveling to Germany on my German passport, which I actually don't have yet. I have the naturalization certificate and I'm officially a German citizen, but I need to book another appointment to get my passport. So who knows when that will happen. And I've got no plans to travel to Germany anytime soon, but fingers crossed we can get the passport and then go, and it'll be very exciting. My main worry then though is that the passport control people will then speak German to me and I'll be like, oh no, I'm a fraud. I'm not really German, I'm sorry. But maybe I'll just learn a few bits, like familiarize myself and just be able to be like, ah, yes, it me. No. So there we have it, the story of my dual citizenship. I hope that you found this video interesting. I'd be curious to know in the comments if you are a dual or triple or whatever citizen, and how that came to be and how that impacts your identity, and yeah, all of those questions. Also, are you someone who is British who scrambled to get any EU passport that you could find when Brexit happened? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next Vlognukah episode. Bye!